Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Just making sure I got all of that right. It's January 20th. We've made it a year. 3 years to go, unless on the Trump presidency, or at least the second term of the Trump presidency, or at least maybe, I don't know. We don't know if it's going to be the last presidency or ever for anybody or what. But, we hope not. And I don't know. We'll hang on tightly and see what goes on. But I guess we'll mark the date. It is 1 year to the day, I guess. Well, almost to the minute. About 3 hours, I guess, until inauguration time. And then you can start counting things down. That's about, it's a little over 1,000 days until it's, supposed to be all over. But I've been counting down. I think it's 1,096 days. So, it's not like 96 days is nothing, but you can get through 90 days. And then we'll start counting down like 1,000 bottles of beer on the wall to the end of the legal term in office anyway. And considering that there hasn't been much legal going on in his term of office, I guess that's not necessarily the best measure, but let's not get caught up in that. We can get caught up in some other things. I'm scrolling through. I'm just talking. While I'm scrolling through, I probably should have come down earlier and see if I could find this thing. But somewhere in Instapaper, I believe, I put aside something that I meant to get to on the weirdo James O'Keefe wannabe operating all over the place, but operating at the moment as I guess maybe the triggering factor of the ongoing, there's nothing else to call it, occupation of Minneapolis. And we told you the story some time ago and connected the two things, that there was the O'Keefe wannabe by the name of Nick Shirley. And remember, we were all entertained by the fact that his name was in fact Shirley. And that he is interviewed at some point after releasing his faked up video insisting that he's uncovered massive fraud, which, of course, to the extent that the fraud exists at all, already has been uncovered and has been prosecuted. But years after the prosecution of this fraud, he is sure he's uncovering more fraud by showing up outside of childcare facilities in Minneapolis and demanding to be allowed in as an anonymous weirdo to videotape the kids there. And of course, something designed to fail. You're not going to get admitted into this, but then you can use conspiracy theory thinking to convince everybody that you're uncovering a fraud. These are not real. They're alleging that they're not real daycare, childcare centers, and that there are no kids in it, and it's all part of a massive fraud to steal everything from everybody all over the place. If you're a real American, and if you're not, then you're guilty of the fraud. I don't know what bothers the Trump administration about fraud so much. He's pardoned more fraudsters than I think probably for almost any other crime, except for the mass crime of the fraud and insurrection against the government in January 6th. It's not real. It's not working. But somewhere I put aside a profile of Nick Shirley that makes it clear that, I guess, I don't know, in case you think he's a serious crusader for truth, justice, and the American way, he and his mom are a team. That's odd. And they're both essentially have been fringe grifters in the MAGA world for some time, looking for a way to break through and hit it big. Going to January 6th wasn't enough, I guess, to do the trick for Nick. But he's been a, ambush interview on the street guy for quite some time, and it's gone nowhere. People are digging up the clips that he's produced in the last couple of years just to show that he's actually been trying. But I've seen more clips of him just getting the wrong answers out of people than anything else so far. Interviewing people that he thought would be agreeable to his racist agenda, and they're not, for whatever reason. So that's kind of funny. But now he's broken through with this thing. It's sort of making him famous. I bring it up because this morning, this isn't where I meant to start, but I bring it up because this morning I saw, and I'll have to arrange to, maybe we can put this on the big computer and get a hold of this thing and play the audio. Although, how long does this thing run? All right, it's only 30 seconds, I guess. Although, I don't know. Do we care to hear the voice of the person saying it? Maybe not. It might not be all that important. Aaron Rupar captured this nonsense on, where I don't know where this is from. Where's Wake Up America aired? I don't know. Sounds like one of the right-wing news network or whatever, right news network or One America news network. I don't know where this is from. All right. Well, shall I play it? He's interviewing Representative Claudia Tenney on the Minnesota happenings. I guess I don't know what else we could call them. And, well, interestingly, she blames the whole thing on the so-called fraud that was discovered there, but she actually credits Nick Shirley with having uncovered it, I guess. So that seems like an awful waste of time. But let me see if I can't get this over to the other computer. Something I need to work on. The other computer does not like running Blue Sky, the Blue Sky deck while the show is running. I don't know. We'll see if we can find a way around that. But every time you want to pull something off of there, you kind of have to find the video in the post and send the post to yourself and open the things one at a time. A little bit annoying. Anyway, we can set the stage for later on finding the piece about Nick Shirley, I guess. And for the time being, move on to something else. But all right, so Wake Up America. I don't know. It doesn't. The bigger picture doesn't give me any clearer idea where this stupid thing is broadcast. But let's hear Claudia Tenney explaining what's really going on in Minnesota. It's not, you see, that people are opposed to the immigration policies and the detention policies of the Trump administration. It's all a cover-up, you see, all a distraction. And I'm kind of glad to see that they fall prey to the everything's a distraction thing, too.
Illegal immigration enforcement actions there and the subsequent protests in the Twin Cities, have they overshadowed the major fraud story that's still ongoing there in Minnesota?
Well, I think that's the whole point of all these protests. And now, at this point, it's continuing to gin them up to distract everyone from the just tremendous fraud, abuse, and waste that we've seen in Minnesota. Uncovered by Nick Shirley, the Quality Learning Center. And now people are starting to look in their own states, like New York and California and everywhere, to eradicate.
So there you go. And so now you can use it as an excuse to invade just about anywhere. Claudia Tenney is from New York, by the way. New York's 24th district. Hopefully we'll be rid of her shortly. I don't know what the what the demographics of the district are like, but I guess if her kookiness is any sort of a measure, I guess it might be a difficult and uphill climb. But it is New York, so you never know. Anyhow, that's it. It's all a distraction. There are people in the streets, as frequently happens. Thousands of people turn out in mutual aid and risk arrest or worse, physical abuse, beatings, getting shot in the face. I mean, we are being asked here to believe that they shot a lady in the face so that they could drive, I guess, to a fraud investigation faster. She was in the way of that, and she wasn't in the way of their racing to a fraud investigation. And none of those people were investigating fraud, of course. There's 2,000, 3,000 people deployed, for a fraud investigation? No. And the whole city is mobilized to cover up a financial fraud. Yeah, I don't think so. But, I guess that's Republican conspiratorial thinking, and they'll use it as an excuse everywhere else, too. Whenever we go to do immigration roundups, we'll pretend, they're having child care fraud, too. And, of course, like I said, there's no crime Trump has pardoned more times than fraud. Except, I suppose, the only other thing that rivals it in terms of seriousness is his willingness to cover up the exploitation of children. So, combined, it's not a great look. But anyway, this looks to be, for a moment there, they said what news network it was, and I saw it on the screen, and then I said, meh, who cares? I can run the video again with the sound off and see if that comes up one more time. When Newsmax, there we go. So the electronic or the chyroning eventually comes around to tell me that this was new. Only Newsmax would carry such a thing. All right. So I mentioned that this wasn't, where I had planned necessarily to spend my time in the morning. There's some, international stuff going on as well. Greenland continues to be a manufactured issue, but it's one that's taking on greater importance, not just because we keep threatening to invade them, but because the world, I don't know what the hell they even call it, the World Economic Forum. Is that right? Is that what it is? The Davos, Switzerland dealie, where all the important financial type people and heads of state, etc., gather to do head of statey things. And in fact, Trump has prepared for this thing. I guess he's winging his way over there. And of course, anytime he's on a plane, that's, dangerous because he'll babble to people. But he goes with the, continued backing of his party and everything. Somebody asks, Aaron Rupar captures another thing here in which on CNBC, Tom Tillis, the newly emboldened Tom Tillis, now that he's not running for re-election, going to jump out in front of things. They ask him, Mitch McConnell has said that an invasion of Greenland would be the sort of thing that would trigger even Republicans to vote for impeachment. Are you in that camp? And he says, to be clear, I think he says, no. I would be for a war powers resolution to, limit, to circumscribe, to control, to check and balance the president's actions there. Which, of course, would do nothing and he would ignore it and everything. And I believe he then says, to be clear, I'm not critical of the president. I'm critical of the bad advice he's getting on Greenland. Very bold. So obviously, that's a no on impeachment, at least publicly. And it may be that he's, figures I have to say I'm a no on impeachment or else I'm going to spend the next, 6 months defending myself against wackos who want to bomb my house. But, if you bring the impeachment, maybe I'll vote for it and then go into hiding. I don't know. There's no real reason to credit him with that sort of thinking if he won't say it out loud. But, that's where he is. Anyway, so Trump is on his way over to Switzerland, and the talking heads are out trying to make the case for him being included in the international community. And foreign heads of state and prime ministers, heads of government and heads of state, going on record, letting everybody know what they think of the Mad King on his way to Switzerland. And there's a lot out there. And Trump apparently has issued what looks like a fancy dinner invitation of some kind. A very weird, as everything is weirdly worded. There's no templates out there for doing the sorts of dumb things that Trump wants to do. And of course, he wants everything done, as though it was a wedding or bar mitzvah at Pervalago. So he's put out this printed material of some kind, and it's not entirely clear what it is. It looks like a fax, something that somebody got via fax. But the printed page has, super fancy script, like the kind that he's using to label the different rooms in the White House now, the Oval Office, the Rose Garden, et cetera, et cetera. The President of the United States invites. Who's he inviting? It just said, this is what the paper says. The President of the United States invites the Chief of State or Head of Government to what? To sign the Board of Peace Charter. Remember that? That's back. On Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. That's how long it's going to take to sign it. At the Davos Congress Center. It says here, on the margins of the World Economic Forum, Davos, Switzerland. So it's like a little wedding or bar mitzvah or luncheon invitation. And of course, it's like addressed to current resident or head of state, to whom it may concern. I like that. Come on by to our very fancy and super classy Board of Peace Charter signing at the Davos Congress Center across the street from the Pizza Hut, and come on by. So we ought to catch up on what the Peace Charter thing is. And I don't know, is that in my Instapaper? I feel like I handled it. I had my hands on it recently. And you may recall that this Board of Peace thing, does the name ring a bell for you? I don't think it's in Instapaper here, so I'm going to have to look it up. But back in the day, when they were paying attention to solving the world's problem and making peace and ending another war in Gaza, remember Gaza? The Trump administration's proposal was, why don't you give the land to me, and I'll bulldoze the whole thing, and I'll make beautiful, beautiful hotels, resorts and golf and beautiful things like you've never seen before. And the United States will own it, and it will become very profitable. And the people will love it. We're going to make what they call smart cities. These are cities where everyone is smart. It's beautiful and fantastic. It has to be transparent, though. Everybody knows it has to be transparent. So we're going to be building it out of lucite. Exactly. And a beautiful all-glass city, very transparent. And, this is their plan. And, of course, it really means ejecting all of the Palestinians and probably asking, I don't know, Qatar and Saudi Arabia to pay for it and then give all the money to Trump or something like that. Anyway, but he was saying, we're going to run the whole thing just like he says he runs Venezuela now, which I guess means he's going to kill the top Palestinian or arrest the top Palestinian politicians and then claim to have taken the place over or something, or he's going to have the Israelis do that. I don't know. Anyway, it's going to be administered by the what he called the Board of Peace. And of course, I'll be the chairman of the Board of Peace, and then other people who will be on the Board of Peace will be, I don't know, who's at breakfast today? Jared Kushner, the other guy who's into the crypto thing where his son is giving me millions and billions of dollars, Witkoff, that's him. He'll be on it, and we'll get some other people, maybe even a Muslim person, if they're rich enough, and we'll have the Board of Peace, and they were going to administer Gaza, American Gaza. And they never really bothered to do any more thinking on that. And it's just fine because it was dumb and it can't be developed into something coherent. So don't waste your time. And I mean, don't even try to think. You're not going to be able to do that. But the idea of the Board of Peace has now expanded. So somewhere along the line, like in the last 2 to 3 days, Trump has decided that the Board of Peace is actually going to be a global thing. It's not for administering Gaza anymore. And in fact, they've come out with some sort of weird charter for it. And that's part of the expansion of the mission. And the charter doesn't mention Gaza at all. Like, this is where it started. But they're already, I'm taking it global. It hasn't done anything locally, but we're taking it global. And it looks like he regards it as some sort of private alternative to the United Nations. We're a Board of Peace, and we're going to bring peace, which we're never going to get bored of, to all the places on the round dirt thing we're on, Earth. And they said I could call it the planet. They said I could call it the Earth, either one. And we're going to bring peace to places where they currently have not peace. And when we bring them peace, everything will be beautiful and wonderful because everyone loves peace. It's better than war. But sometimes they do say, sometimes you got to have war to have peace. That's what they say. They frequently say this thing. People are saying it more and more these days. If you want peace, you got to have the board, which will stop the wars. That's, I believe, the saying. And so he's organized this thing. And in the last couple of days, he's put out notice that if you want in on the Board of Peace, if your country would like to be represented on the Board of Peace. Now, mind you, to date, the Board of Peace has been people. It's going to be me. It's going to be Jared Kushner. It's going to be Steve Witkoff. And he has some names that he actually said. And one guy I saw actually looked like he might be qualified for like a world thing, but everybody else was just, Trump crony. But he wants more members of the Board of Peace, but these members of the Board of Peace are proposed to be representatives of nations, countries, places with borders. If you don't have border, you're not a nation. And that he he insists that in order to, if you want a seat on the Board of Peace, countries should pay $1 billion to somebody. I mean, he says to us, and he means for people to think that he means the United States and the United States Treasury, I guess. But that's, not the reality of it. And I guess he is going to pay it to one of those slush funds that I keep in a bank in Qatar, along with the stolen Venezuelan oil money, I guess. And then it's in my control. And by the way, there's a whole show could be done on that just to get to the discussion of his bypassing Congress and the Treasury with this Venezuelan oil money, keeping it overseas so that he can control it like a slush fund. All right. Well, anyway, that's what they're doing. And now, of course, he's being much more open about the idea of it being an alternative UN. And so he's using Davos, Switzerland as a gathering place. Come on over if you're a head of state and you can sign the charter, which has no mention of Gaza in it, of the Board of Peace. And that's basically a sales contract. Like I'm selling you a timeshare in the Board of Peace, and you guys then have 10 days to come up with $1 billion and give me that money. The New York Times has a story that is actually posted 3 hours ago, which is surprising that it goes with the headline of Gaza's Board of Peace, What to Know. And it's astonishing that at this late date they are referring to it as a Gaza thing. I figured this would be like 3 months ago. They were calling it Gaza's Board of Peace, What to Know. But up at the top of the listing of the Google News search for Board of Peace is Reuters piece, UAE, surprisingly enough, because they have $1 billion to give for this, becomes early supporter of Trump's, quote, Board of Peace with formal acceptance. So, I mean, I guess you're forced to read the What to Know version of this, because otherwise, how will you know what there is to know? Thank you, New York Times. Numerous countries, it says here in the subheader, say they have been invited to join President Trump's newly minted organization, which critics say could undermine the United Nations. I mean, I guess it could if enough countries of consequence and with enough money say, I'm not going to abide by UN stuff, and I'm going to pretend that the Board of Peace has authority. That would be something. But I mean, I don't know if it's really necessarily going to undermine the United Nations. It's just going to sort of undermine international order as it's used as a place to, formally bribe the president of the United States with $1 billion. Anyway, Aaron Boxerman and Isabel Kirshner are the reporters here. They are reporting from Jerusalem as if the Board of Peace had anything to do with Gaza anymore, which is a little odd. And again, their headline is What to Know About Trump's Board of Peace for Gaza. Anyway, so that's interesting. When President Trump said he planned to establish and lead a, quote, Board of Peace, and remember, he was going to win the Nobel Peace Prize, so of course, Board of Peace, which is just a dumb name, but what can you do? Anyway, when he said he planned to establish it to oversee the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, many did not know what to make of it. I mean, many did. It's dumb. Yes, sir. Correct making of it. On Friday, letters, allegedly, it just looked like a faxed flyer to me. Letters went out asking countries to join the newly minted body, among them U.S. allies like Canada, France, Britain, and Saudi Arabia. Which of these things is now like the other? You tell me. But Russia and Belarus, hardly allies. What? New York Times. What? Anyway, they were also on the list. And a review of the body's charter, which governments received alongside their invitations, in a link, I guess, I don't know, suggested that Mr. Trump hoped the Board of Peace could get involved in all kinds of global conflicts, not just the one in the Gaza Strip or the New York Strip, which is a delicious, delicious cut of meat, which you can get from Trump's quality steaks. And by the way, actually, New York Strip, not particularly flavorful cut, if you ask me, but because it's New York, which I hate, by the way, you're going to love the steak because everyone loves New York except those of us who hate it. Critics reacted furiously, saying the Trump administration appeared to be setting up the board as a potential American-dominated rival to the United Nations, which Mr. Trump has long accused of liberal bias and waste, but not so much so that he wouldn't build a Trump Tower there and sell condos to all of the diplomats working at the highest levels of the UN, which was exactly what happens. And I think where Kellyanne Conway lives. Anyway, as chairman, Mr. Trump would have considerable influence over the Board of Peace. I guess because who the F knows how the Board of Peace works. There's no rules, and he owns it. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump Organization. With countries being asked to pay more than $1 billion, how do you like that, for permanent membership? You can, of course, rent membership for less, apparently. Its budget could be substantial if, like, one country joins, I guess. Though it's unclear how much control Mr. Trump would have over how the money is spent. No, that is not unclear. He will have all control over how all the money is spent. Duh. I know you don't see any evidence for that, except, 79 years of Donald Trump's existence. Okay, let me come back to this after a 2-minute break and see if we can't dig up the other things I wanted to share with you about this and other things. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. So we were in the middle of reading about the Board of Peace, which the New York Times, for whatever reason, continues to cover with a Gaza angle on it. You remember, of course, as they do, that it was the origin of the idea. We're going to, administer the new American Gaza. They're going to give, remember, they were, in fact, he was saying they were going to give control of Gaza to America, which is a headache, nobody wants. I don't think that's not, and I mean that in the broadest possible sense, like no one in Gaza wants to be an American territory. I don't think. Well, I'm sure there's somebody who thinks that's a good idea. There's always, even as Greg was saying, the 14%, as we're down to, who will say yes to just about anything. But it was a crazy idea then, and then the idea that say, hey, you know what, screw Gaza, that's not even nearly big enough. Why, if I'm just Gaza, if it's the Board of Peace is just the Board of Peace in Gaza, all we can do is get money from people who are interested in Gaza. And I'm not interested in Gaza. Probably the rest of the world doesn't care about Gaza either. They do, very deeply. But they're not going to give us $1 billion for it. Maybe to them, but not to me. If I say I need $1 billion to fix Gaza, they'll say I'll put it in Gaza's bank account, whatever that is. They're not going to give it to me. But if I say it's for me to control, and the reason you need to give me the money is I've solved 8 wars, and I'll solve 8 more every day, and it's a great investment. Give me the money. So now it's a world peace forum, and super stable genius, very stable genius, Donald Trump, his very weird, squeaky son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the other rich guy whose son is making my sons rich will fix all the things. So please give us money. So they go on with the description here at the New York Times that says the presence of Turkey, and Qatar on one of the board's subcommittees. I don't know how much that costs. Also prompted an immediate outcry from Israel, which has been at odds with the Turkish government, particularly over the war in Gaza. So that's also a very funny thing. Would you like to be on the board of peace for Gaza? And I mean, what would be a brilliant play? It would be really interesting if all of the rich Gulf states, where we have Muslim majorities and overtly Muslim governance in these states, but are oil rich, get together and pay the billions of dollars and take over the board of peace and say, it's Palestine now. Poof. We fooled you. We actually weren't looking to, change the nature of things. In fact, we were just looking to wrest away control of the territory from Israel and establish a different state there. What are you going to do about it? Board of peace. Ta-da! When I say board of peace, you have to do like Mary Catherine Gallagher, board of peace superstar, and do the lunge forward. Which, in some of those loose-fitting Arabian robes is probably... it's loose, but it does go all the way down to the bottom of the legs. I think it makes the forward lunge difficult. And you don't want to see what happens if you hike up the robe in order to make the lunge. Do you? I don't. Maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe some people would think that was interesting, or at least internationally intriguing. Anyhow, so that's kind of funny. Israel, that'd be hilarious if he accidentally undermined the whole Israel thing. Except for, of course, the folks in Israel. Probably not find it funny at all in the end. So here's what we know so far about the Board of Peace. The New York Times is willing to tell us. What is its mission? Well, initially, the board appeared to be part of Mr. Trump's vision for post-war Gaza. His plan, such as it was at the time, called the board a new international transitional body. In other words, I guess it was sort of like the coalition provisional authority for Gaza that would help supervise, except, of course, it would, instead of changing it into a regular city where Iraqis could live outside of the dominance of Saddam Hussein and his family and his controlling Ba'athist party, but instead here it would be super brilliant, smart cities with beautiful, gorgeous casino hotels controlled by me. But okay, it's going to be an international transitional body that would help supervise the rebuilding of the Palestinian enclave. The board's members would include world leaders, with Mr. Trump sitting at the head of the table, and therefore the room tilting towards the head of the table. The United Nations Security Council later formally backed the board, which I really can't believe. And to the extent that the Board of Peace ever replaces or undermines the UN, you did it to yourselves, even though surely the United States, in cooperation with Russia and China, and at this point probably Britain, maybe France held out, surely would have attempted to engineer this for it. But I don't know. For whatever reason, the UN was willing to put its imprimatur on this by formally backing the board in a U.S. drafted resolution in November, giving it the force of international legitimacy. Whoops. Well, like I said, it's your own fault. The resolution gave the board a mandate to work with governments to recruit international peacekeepers for Gaza. It was to carry out Mr. Trump's plan in Gaza until the internationally recognized Palestinian Authority conducted reforms, the resolution said. But after the United States circulated the board's charter on Friday, it became clear that Mr. Trump envisioned a much bigger role for the body. Nobody knew until last week. The proposed charter said the Board of Peace, you have to say the whole thing. It doesn't matter whether Trump is actually saying it. You have to call it the Board of Peace would secure enduring peace. I guess this is probably not his voice necessarily, but maybe it's funnier reading these lofty ideals in the Trump voice. The proposed charter would secure enduring peace in areas affected or threatened by conflict. And everybody knows I end conflicts. Not just Gaza, according to a copy shared with the New York Times. It also called for a more nimble and effective international peace-building body. Well, who's been invited? Who will join? They ask. And then they answer. The list of invitees includes, I love this, like it's an alternative to the United Nations. So who's invited? Nations, everybody, right? But no, not at the Board of Peace. What do you mean, nations? Well, I mean like the United States, other ones, Canada, England, I don't know, Holland. What do they call that now? Probably also Congo. Yeah, they're from Africa. It's huge. There's a lot of people there. So Congo, also China, and then the other ones around it where all the people look Chinese, but they say they have different passports. Thank you. That's very helpful. The list of invitees includes Britain, Jordan, all right, Russia, and others. Wow. I mean, there's 199 or whatever on the country picker wheel, right? So how about that? It's going to replace the United Nations. Who's going to be in it? Britain, Jordan, Russia, others. So, okay. But so far, only a handful, like the pro-Trump Argentine President Javier Milei and Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary, have said they will join. But the invitation has gone out to places as different as Britain and Russia, but also Michael Jordan. Despite overseeing Gaza, which they don't do, right? Neither the Board of Peace nor a Gaza executive board underneath it has any Palestinian members as yet, but, F all of that. The board is, however, to oversee the work of a group of Palestinian technocrats charged with administering public services in Gaza. You get the garbage and you set the table and you will make sure, walk the dog. That's the administrative aspect of things. Analysts say they will face a formidable challenge given that Gaza is still split between areas under Israeli and Hamas control. It's probably one of the formidable challenges I would say you'd have in rebuilding and living in a peaceful Gaza. Thank you. Some countries appear skeptical. I'm a country now. To acquire a permanent seat on the Board of Peace, each would have to pay more than $1 billion in cash, interestingly enough, within the first year to fund the body's operations. Countries can join for 3 years free of charge. So if you're interested in 3 or fewer years of peace, it's available at a bargain price. I think this is really something, too. It is as arbitrary, I guess, as the United Nations permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. At the time, though, you could at least have made the argument these are the countries that are probably going to dominate world affairs. And they did. You could say they were right, but of course, part of the reason that they were right was they forced that to happen. But I guess it's almost, it probably was the case that the permanent members were asked to probably put up funding to stand the organization up, but a lot less directly than put this in my secret bank account in Qatar. So that's weird, I think, to be so overt with it. The charter would invest considerable personal power in Mr. Trump as chairman, which, again, that's another issue, long-term stability of the organization, all vested in a guy a cheeseburger away from death. But, all right. It says that he will name members of a second executive board quote unquote, to carry out the board's decisions, and that Mr. Trump would wield considerable veto power over its actions. He would also be able to name his own successor. And he has, and his name is his name, Donald Trump Jr. Mr. Trump would also be permitted to enact resolutions or other directives to carry out the board's mission and to create, modify, or dissolve subsidiary entities. I mean, it is the dumbest thing I believe anybody could ever sign on to, the idea of literally handing the keys to ruling the world to a guy who put the charter together in a week and faxed it to my office. That's nuts. I can't believe the New York Times is like, yep, this is a thing. France does not currently intend to join. So I am going to learn to speak French, I guess, and I'll go there. As the board's charter raises serious questions about respecting the role of the United Nations, a senior French official said. In response, Mr. Trump threatened to impose 200% tariffs on French wine and champagne. And I mean, there is no other champagne but French champagne. Everyone knows that. Otherwise, it's just sparkling, whatever you want to call it. And this too, not including France, can only be called sparkling hegemony. Anyway, so 200% tariffs on French wine. By the way, the Trump organization does own and operate a winery, a wine operation. So it can't be too bad for them. But how do you like that? So 200% tariffs if President Emmanuel Macron declined his invitation. And I know the invitation went out because this, too, is circulating somehow from Truth Social. Trump claiming he's got a screenshot of a text, like a direct personal text from Emmanuel Macron to Trump saying, oh, I'm very confused about Greenland. My friend, no one understands what you're trying to do. Let's meet and have dinner, because you can always lure him with dinner. A free bird seed. Just put a box and a stick over the dinner and the world's problems are over. In fact, I guess if you do it and you capture him, that entitles you to withdraw all the money from the Board of Peace. So it's very lucrative. I would look into seeing whether the privateers of the Caribbean could make this work. But he's invited him to dinner to discuss things, and is very, very, very neo-royalist, as we were talking about. For Trump, this works. Elite to elite, right? The president of France is texting me, let's get together and have lunch and work out the world's deals. All right. So there you go. It remains unclear how many countries will pay. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped that President Vladimir Putin of Russia, of course, has been invited to join the board as well, Mr. Trump said. Not Russia buying a seat, but again, there, Putin gets the seat. It's very odd, to say the least. It remains unclear how many countries will pay the fee to become permanent members as opposed to accepting the optional 3-year term free. I mean, it's like Hulu or the Board of Peace. We're going to either run the world or stream lovely, programming to you with commercials free, but you can opt to go commercial free. But by the way, it's only going to last 3 years until we start including commercials in the paid version too. But if you sign up for premium, you can escape the commercials. How will the board work in Gaza? They're still asking this question. It is not exactly clear how much oversight the Board of Peace will exert over Gaza and for how long. And the answer is, look at the charter. They don't care about Gaza. They thought they could, make a great deal and make billions on luxury hotels in Gaza. And then they were like, holy cow, we could make trillions if we extort billions from every country in the world. It's not exactly clear how much oversight the Board of Peace will exert over Gaza and for how long. But 2 subcommittees reporting to Mr. Trump's board, I mean, they say it as though this was a real process for a real thing that actually exists. It isn't. But 2 subcommittees reporting to Mr. Trump's board have already been set up to carry out his Gaza peace plan. And you'll be amazed to find out that the subcommittees are made up of the people that he just said were actually the Board of Peace, because there's no other names. Last week, the White House named a Gaza executive board that includes, you'll never guess. Anyone want to guess? The same people I told you were going to be on the Board of Peace anyway. Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and also there's a Qatari and there are Qatari and Egyptian officials, as well as an Israeli businessman. Who? I don't know, a guy. He has money. In a rare public break with Mr. Trump, Israel criticized the makeup of the committee, particularly the presence of Qatar and Turkey, which we're calling Turkey in this one. Both countries helped mediate between Israel and Hamas to secure the Gaza ceasefire, but Israeli officials have accused them of being too close to Hamas. And what do you do, by the way, if Hamas, or for that matter, I don't know, Hezbollah, Iran, says, all right, here's $1 billion. We want to be a permanent member of the Board of Peace. Do you say no? I mean, Trump might say no, but anyway, that's pretty crazy. That's, I really don't know what to tell you about that one other than that's like what is really supposed to be out there happening right now. So let's see. There's a couple of other things here. This one is the story about the 200% tariff being threatened on French wine. That's true. It's interesting, too. Not everything from France, I guess, but a targeted thing. And what does Trump think of? Well, we're going to target France with tariffs. All right, wine, cheese, I guess, but nobody really wants any of those smelly cheeses. Wine, though, everybody wants French wine because it's very classy. You got to have the French wine. We're going to make it very expensive to do that. All right. Wow. So let's say, Bloomberg has a story. I don't know how much of it we can read, but has a story about the text. Trump reveals Macron text in pre-Davos blitz on major U.S. allies. It's, of course, blocked by a paywall, but at least I can verify that the thing actually is true. It actually happened. If I scroll down in Blue Sky, we'll get to it here. I guess the first person I saw was Yashar Ali circulating it, having taken the screenshot from Truth Social, which, I discourage everyone from doing, but here you go. There's another report about the wine tariff. But President Trump has posted what appears to be a private message from President Macron of France, where Macron says, quote, "I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland." Note from, and here it is, President Donald J. Trump on Truth Social. Note from President Emmanuel Macron of France, not the other one. And then here, a screenshot, although I did see somebody say, do you think Trump knows how to take a screenshot? He must have handed the phone over to somebody else. But here you are. The message is from President Macron to President Trump. On what format, I am unsure. Actually, I can't tell. Anyway, my friend, we are totally in line. I'm actually not be trying to do a French accent. We are totally in line on Syria. We can do great things on Iran. I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. Let us try to build great things. 1. I can set up a G7 meeting after Davos in Paris. They're going to go to G6 eventually when they kick us out. After Davos in Paris on Thursday afternoon. I can invite the Ukrainians, the Danish, the Syrians, the Russians in the margins. In other words, you and I will have dessert first and choose the most delicious foods, and then everyone else get the scraps. I mean, I guess that's how we would describe it to him, to make it sound exclusive. 2, let us have a dinner together in Paris, together, he says it together twice, on Thursday before you go back to the U.S. Signed, Emmanuel. So, that's very much going to appeal to Trump, that the president of France texts me personally, we're going to have dinner and settle things. So, all right, I mean, that's quite bizarre, to say the least. In the margins of other international affairs, there's this interesting piece from the BBC, which you should put in the folder of political union with Russia to own the globalists. One more piece of evidence, BBC reports, quote, Europe is at a total loss, unquote, Russia gloats over Greenland tensions. Steve Rosenberg reporting for the BBC here. Listen to Donald Trump, and you should jump off a cliff, but listen to Donald Trump and you would think Moscow and Beijing were lying in wait off the coast of Greenland, ready to pounce to boost their power in the Arctic. There are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers, and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place, President Trump said recently in a way that should tip you off that he doesn't know what he's talking about. That is why, according to the America's president, U.S. control of Greenland is essential. So, how do you think Moscow has reacted to its alleged plot being uncovered and potentially thwarted by a U.S. takeover of Greenland? The Russians can't be pleased, right? Wrong. Well, in an astonishing article, the Russian government paper is full of praise for Trump and critical of European leaders who oppose a U.S. annexation of Greenland. Standing in the way of the U.S. president's historic breakthrough is the stubbornness of Copenhagen and the mock solidarity of intransigent European countries, including so-called friends of America, Britain and France, writes, I guess the paper we're talking about is Rossiyskaya Gazeta. I don't know if it's a Russian gazette. Anyway, Europe does not need the American greatness that Trump is promoting. Brussels is counting on, quote, drowning the U.S. president, oh, that's an idea, in the midterm congressional elections, on preventing him from concluding the greatest deal of his life. Greatest deal? The reporter explains what he means. I have to keep reminding myself I am reading the Russian government newspaper, not a pro-Trump publication in America. If Trump annexes Greenland by July 4th, 2026, I didn't realize he was putting that deadline on it, but now that sounds like, sure, he probably would think that. When America celebrates its 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, he will go down in history as a figure who asserted the greatness of the United States, writes Rossiyskaya, can't pronounce this. Rossiyskaya, maybe? Rossiyskaya Gazeta. It's the second time it's come up. With Greenland, the U.S. becomes the second largest country in the world after Russia, surpassing Canada in area. For Americans, that's on par with such planetary events as the abolition of slavery by Abraham Lincoln in 1862. Wow, are they buttering him up? Or the territorial conquests of the Napoleonic Wars. I don't know what those are, but I like the Abraham Lincoln thing. By the way, Abraham Lincoln also shot like me, so we have much more in common than you think. If, thanks to Trump, Greenland becomes a part of America, for sure the American people will not forget such an achievement. And the Russian reporter has this message for America's president. Don't U-turn. Don't taco, right, Betty? It is dangerous for the American president to back down over Greenland. This would weaken the position of the Republican Party. In the midterm elections, they're meddling. Oh, no. And likely result in a Democrat majority on Capitol Hill with the ensuing consequences for Trump. Whereas a rapid annexation of Greenland before the elections can change this political trend. In other words, it's in Trump's interest to push ahead with his plans to take over Greenland, according to the Russian government paper. Let that sink in. But why the praise from Moscow? Why the apparent encouragement? It's because Russia has much to gain from the current situation. Trump's fixation with Greenland, his determination to take over the island and impose tariffs on European countries that oppose his plan, have put a huge strain on the transatlantic alliance, both on America's relations with Europe and within NATO. Anything that weakens or threatens to split the Western alliance is viewed by Moscow as a huge positive for Russia. Europe is at a total loss the Russians? Okay. Europe is at a total loss, and to be honest, it's a pleasure to watch this, gloated the Russian tabloid Moskovsky Komsomolets. I'm not sure what Komsomolets means, but a Komsomol, wasn't that like the youth organization? Communist? Anyway. Anyway, that's Europe is a total loss. To be honest, it's a pleasure to watch it. Says about Greenland. What's more, American threats to annex Greenland are being used by pro-Kremlin commentators to try to justify, of course, Russia's war on Ukraine. Victory in Ukraine remains the Kremlin's priority. Moscow believes that maintaining a positive relationship with the Trump administration will help achieve this. It might. Hence, Russia's criticism of Europe, but not of Donald Trump. Wow. So, just one more thing, as I said, for the files of political union with Russia to own the globalists, taking over all of Greenland and expanding our footprint on the globe because we hate globalists so much. Remember when that used to be the target of so much of their ire? All right. So, coming up on our top of the hour break, and maybe afterwards I can shift back towards telling you about Nick Shirley, who once again, they haven't dropped this guy, and holding him up. And I don't know what's dumber, the idea that the protests in Minnesota are to cover up for the supposed child care fraud that's been alleged and prosecuted. I mean, they've already, like I said, done those convictions, so it's not even an allegation at this point. Or that Nick Shirley is worth crediting with anything. But that's the mechanism through which they exert their control, though. It's not me doing all these fabulous things for you. It's this, I'm so selfless. It's Nick Shirley. All right. Anyway, it's been very, I guess, interesting to watch. And a couple of other really weird wild card additions to the news for today. By the way, one of the things somebody showed me on Blue Sky the other day, with respect to the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize obsession that Trump has. I have heard this before, the theory, and it makes sense, that Trump covets the Nobel Peace Prize largely because he's out to prove that he's better, smarter, more president-y than Barack Obama specifically. And of course, Barack Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize. So why hasn't Trump been given one? And that's a problem for him. And I understood that as a theory. Another weird piece of evidence for the theory, though, was offered up yesterday. I hadn't taken note of this at the time, but apparently on his first inauguration, at the inaugural ball, Trump had, I didn't even realize that they had this. There's an inaugural cake, I guess. You get married, there's a wedding cake. You get inaugurated, there's an inauguration cake. I didn't even really know that was the case, but there was. And apparently Barack Obama had this really fun, interesting one for one of his inaugurations. In the era of Cake Boss, we now have very fancy cakes. Trump actually at his first inauguration said, I want the exact same cake. They copied it, and there's a picture of the two cakes side by side. So maybe he's trying to copy him on the medal too. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on At Roots Radio. We continue on. So yeah, first of all, there's such a thing as an inauguration cake. Whatever. I mean, why not? It's a little bit odd, but it would be very Trumpy to have such a thing. If there had never been an inauguration cake, and maybe there never was prior to Barack Obama's thing, I got no idea. There's an article that explains the first such cake, I guess, or the Trump cake. But anyway, I guess if they hadn't had that certainly would be the Trumpy sort of thing. He does, like I said, he handles everything as though it's a wedding or bar mitzvah or something being held at the Pervalago Ballroom. Even that invitation to sign the charter of the weirdo Board of Peace is in that scripty stuff, and you're cordially invited. And anyway, so he stages all of his photos like group photos at an event like that. Everybody stands, with the shoulders turned and, one way, and then he's in the middle, and, So of course, having a cake too. Well, where's the cake? Like, there's probably either a cake, we cut it, we make a speech, something like that. I smear it in the face of the Speaker of the House or something like that, maybe. But yeah, one, that you would have a cake. Weird. Two, that you would say, I want that cake. And I wonder whether his excuse was, well, that's the president's cake. That's a president cake. Versus, I like that cake a lot and I want to copy it. But remember also, didn't Melania give a speech at some point and it was plagiarized from Michelle Obama's? And, there's just so many places in which this has happened. Anyway, there's apparently a whole New York Times article about it. Who posted this that I saw that it was out there? Where? See if I can find it. But there we are. Joanne Freeman, according to the bio here, a historian of early U.S. politics and culture. I could ask her whether there used to be cakes. And she was posting this. I've been thinking about this and DJT's Nobel craziness, DJT's first inauguration. He precisely copied Obama's inauguration cake. See, he's not better than me. Thus, the Nobel. Obama got one. Obama is loved. DJT must get one to prove Obama's not better than him. And then linking to this weird article from 2017, a new administration, a new era. But that cake looks familiar. Eli Rosenberg put that together back in January of 2017, late Friday night, after a day of celebrations for President Trump's inauguration. The pastry chef and TV personality Duff Goldman noticed something familiar. One of Mr. Trump's 3 official inaugural balls, this one, A Salute to Our Armed Services, was the title, featured a cake that looked exactly like the one he had made for Barack Obama's inauguration 4 years ago. Mr. Goldman posted pictures on social media of the 2 cakes, both multi-layered towers adorned by red, white, and blue bunting, presidential seals, and stars. The cake on the left is the one I made, the one that looks nice, basically, in the pictures that were on Blue Sky, is the one I made for President Obama's inauguration 4 years ago. The one on the right is Trump's, Mr. Goldman wrote. I didn't make it. And by the way, I just want to say, it may have something to do with the fact that the lighting is great, sharp and beautiful in the Obama cake photo and fuzzy and terrible in the Trump cake photo. But that, too, is indicative of just, again, how they do things. We're going to have official photography. In the Obama White House, they had a crack photographer who was a beautiful with artistic composition and using the best equipment. And in the Trump White House, it's, the local photographer that you hire for Pervalago bar mitzvahs taking these pictures. And the lighting and composition and graininess of the photos makes it evident every single time. Anyway, it's just odd, and I kind of want to read the rest of this article. I hope it's not that long because it's about cake. But, on Saturday morning, the Buttercream Bake Shop, the bakery in Washington that made the cake for the Trump gathering, explained why the cake looked so similar to Mr. Goldman's. The bakers had been asked by inaugural organizers to copy it. And I don't know how ethical that is. By the way, that's plagiarism and you have to fire the president of Harvard and something. But it's a cake. Does it work like that? Well, it's a creative endeavor. It's art, right? To the extent that it's art, somebody should be in trouble. But, whatever. On its Instagram account, the bake shop wrote, "This year's committee commissioned us to recreate it. While we most love creating original designs, when we are asked to replicate someone else's work, we are thrilled when it is a masterpiece like this one," the bakery wrote. The inaugural cake quickly became a punchline on Twitter, a mock controversy with the hashtag CakeGate, and it was another intellectual property mishap, however small, connected to Mr. Trump. Oh no, whoops. Earlier that day, Mr. Trump's takeover of the POTUS Twitter account included a stock image of Mr. Obama's first inauguration. It was used as its background. The inauguration committee did not respond to an immediate request for comment, rather. A spokeswoman for Tiffany McIsaac, the owner of Buttercream Bake Shop, said that some of the planners for the Armed Forces Ball approached the shop with a picture of the cake Mr. Goldman had made. The cake was largely for show, the spokeswoman said. It was mostly made of plastic foam, except for a portion at the bottom. Buttercream Bake Shop donated its proceeds from the cake to the Human Rights Campaign, one of the nation's largest LGBT civil rights advocacy groups and one of the bakery's favorite charities. That's fun. Mr. Goldman did not respond to a request for comment, but as the story spread about how his cake was cloned, he posted a détente of sorts. "Remembering a fantastic cake I made is awesome, and the chef that recreated it for POTUS Trump did a fantastic job." So cake solidarity there, I guess. A great hug, a group hug, y'all. That was gracious of him. Goldman, who was featured on Food Network's cake-themed reality show Ace of Cakes, there's more than just one, told the Washington Post in 2009 he hoped the cake he made for Mr. Obama would stay out of the news. "The cake is only going to be the headline," he said, "if it falls over on a senator or something like that." Well, probably true. Anyway, I just thought, one, it was weird that there are such things as inauguration cakes, and it didn't answer the question of whether that's ever been a thing before, but wild that Trump went through with, we got to have an inauguration cake. And then, of course, he has a Marine Guard in formal dress present a sword with which, the Marine is actually handling the sword, but Trump and Pence both sort of put a hand on it to try to use the sword to cut the actual cake layer of the cake. And then no one knows what happens after that because the rest of the thing isn't cake, and they serve some different cake anyway. So more fake crap. That's just where, the way it is in Trump world. All right. I definitely had other things I wanted to share with you, and I wanted to head in a couple other different directions. But I mentioned to you that at the outset, we listened to, who was it? Congresswoman Doofus McGee over there. What was it? Claudia Tenney, saying that all of the protests going on in Minneapolis isn't really about immigration. It's about distracting from the massive scandal of fake child care centers, which is important to Republicans because one or two of them was run by Somali American immigrants. And so therefore, all Somalians have to be deported because one of the guys was a bit of a cheater. And he's either got to be deported or elected president of the United States or be pardoned by him. I'm not sure which of the outcomes they're going to get. But she credits the whole thing to Nick Shirley for uncovering the huge scandal, which, as I've mentioned before, and as the newspapers have mentioned, has been found out, investigated, and prosecuted. And there are people convicted and sitting in jail for it right now. But Nick Shirley, a couple of years later, used it as his breakthrough moment. So I mentioned to you that they are a weird mother and son duo, these Shirleys. There is a Guardian article about it, and I thought I might grab that one. There's also something from the Independent about, which I won't use because it's got a different angle on it, and two, I'm not sure I could open the Independent's articles or not, but this mentions that right at the end of the year, the New Year's Eve is when this was published. Nick Shirley's mom, Brooke, goes on TV to defend son from criticism over his reporting from Minnesota. Remember, of course, that his reporting was entirely debunked. Oh, look, she's got some Mar-a-Lago face going on there. That's good news, too. I can read the story, but we'll start with, instead, if I can get back to it, the other UK paper, another UK paper, The Guardian, behind the Somali daycare panic, which is, of course, fueling what's going on in Minnesota, is a mother and son duo angling to be top MAGA influencers. They've been trying so hard for so long, and this has been their big breakthrough moment. And Claudia Tenney should be charging them $1 billion to be on her board of peace in exchange. Jason Wilson wrote this on January 10th. We're just now catching up with it. And I think we got to know, if we're going to have members of Congress going on TV and saying this is all because of the brilliance of Nick Shirley, we got to know more. Nick and Brooke Shirley have for years published conspiracy-minded takes on hot-button right-wing issues. I don't know if they're as crazy as going about saying they were internally decapitated in dreams and therefore became psychic and could hear when the wind blows what they ought to be investigating, but it sounds pretty close. YouTube influencer Nick Shirley, whose viral video alleging fraud by daycare centers servicing Minneapolis' Somali American community came days ahead of the Trump administration's declaration of a national funding freeze, has for years published conspiracy-minded takes on hot-button right-wing issues. And if at first you don't succeed, I guess, try again. He also has close ties to the White House, Republicans, and to representatives of an earlier generation of right-wing partisan ambush journalists, such as James O'Keefe. He worked with Minnesota Republicans to produce the viral video on Somali-run daycares, and remember, they found nothing. Nothing. And what had been found in the past had already been prosecuted. But here he is, like, I'm huge and famous. And you got Congress people agreeing to do this. Shirley has collaborated closely with his mother, thanks Mom, and fellow influencer Brooke Shirley, with the pair traveling together to flashpoints elevated by right-wing discourse online and in conservative media, and publishing across platforms including TikTok and YouTube. Their U.S. destinations have included the southern border, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. But they have also traveled overseas for big-ticket right-wing and anti-immigrant events, including the Tommy Robinson-organized Unite the Kingdom rally last September. Just pause for a moment to consider the irony of going overseas for anti-immigrant rallies. Shirley's videos frequently sensationalize conflict or focus on street violence. The titles of recent videos include Dearborn, Michigan has fallen, Christians and Muslims battle, Portland has fallen, everything fallen, Antifa has taken control of city, and I confronted dangerous migrant scammers in NYC / Canal Street. The latter of which highlights a physical confrontation between Shirley and a street vendor in New York. I can see how that would happen. They just charge so much. Anyway, Shirley's December 26th video, which targeted Minnesota's Somali community with allegations of widespread fraud, even though he was only at one place, became the basis for a torrent of anti-immigrant and anti-Somali content across social media, including Truth Social posts from Donald Trump. Follow-up reporting by local outlets, including CBS Minnesota, CBS, wow, who would have guessed, and the Minnesota Star Tribune, which is actually good, has found little factual basis for Shirley's claims that daycare centers were claiming federal funding without caring for any children. More than 90 people in Minnesota have been charged since 2022, and you may remember Joseph Biden at that point being president of the United States, in a $250 million COVID-19 relief fraud scheme involving a nonprofit that falsely claimed to provide meals to children, and a federal prosecutor estimated that $9 billion or more in federal funds across 14 state programs may have been stolen since 2018. Entirely possible. But again, 14 states, but something, Minnesota's the only one, yada, yada. But no fraud charges have been filed against the daycare centers featured in Shirley's videos, though state records show some had code violations unrelated to fraud. Wow, he's uncovering that sometimes they left the peanut butter out. Shirley's latest video was the culmination of a years-long peripatetic effort by the mother and son pairing, which is also a little bit weird, honestly, to entrench themselves at the head of a burgeoning milieu of MAGA-verse content creators. Brooke Shirley, 55, has posted hundreds of videos to her TikTok account beginning just 2 weeks after the January 6th protests at the United States Capitol, which Nick Shirley filmed himself attending. She has also publicly defended the veracity of her son's work. In November, she told the Columbia Journalism Review, as though they had done any journalism, what Nick is doing is journalism. That's a great... What a fantastic quote that is. What a robust defense. Hello, I'm calling from the Columbia Journalism Review. What's your son doing? Journalism. Adding, though, that he's documenting what is going on in America, except it isn't, and in the world. And independent journalists are the ones that are out there. I mean, so are other journalists. They're all out there. They also have shared a shared self-perception as truth-telling citizen journalists. The Guardian contacted Brooke Shirley for comment via voice and text message on a cell phone number identified as an active connection in her name by several data brokers. It's a very revealing look at how they get that number. Nick Shirley was contacted for comment via the contact email listed on his YouTube page, and which he has invited people to send tips on in the description field of his videos. Neither responded. Okay, now who am I looking at here? A professor of media and communications policy at City St. George's, University of London. It is Petros, Iosefidos, maybe. Iosefidos? Let's try that. Petros Iosefidos Again, professor of media and communications at City St. George, University of London, and co-author of the 2021 book Digital Democracy, Social Media, and Disinformation. That's right, disinformation. Said such a usage of social media does not aid democratic representation and instead contributes to a greater destabilization of modern politics. He added, the situation has worsened in more recent years with widespread mis/disinformation that deprives the public of their fundamental right to have access to reliable, accurate information so as to make informed decisions. Next up, Nick Shirley's very good year. Not in Trump wine, but in something else. Nick Shirley has emerged in the last 2 years, so really 2 very good years, as one of a new crop of news influencers who achieved a new level of salience at the tail end of the Biden years and have been actively cultivated by Trump's White House. Shirley was one of the invitees to a White House Antifa roundtable. Why? 'Cause in October, at which influencers and administration officials aired their grievances about the amorphous social movement that has served as a MAGA target since Trump's first presidency. Shirley dutifully posted a video of his speech at the event on his YouTube channel. By then, Shirley was riding high on the basis of a previous viral yarn after he was one of the first influencers to post alarmist videos about immigrant vendors on New York's Canal Street. Wow, that is a discovery. Somebody who's upset about immigrant vendors on Canal Street. Well, I'll alert the media. By then, Shirley was riding high on the basis of that. Oh, I'm sorry, that is the same one. But, okay, so that he's riding high on that previous yarn. Reportedly, the attention from Shirley and other news influencers such as Savannah Hernandez led to an ICE sweep of the vendors, which was met by resistance from New York residents and earned a rebuke from Zoran Mandami, then a mayoral candidate, who called the tactics aggressive and reckless. One media report quoted a resident of the Chinatown district where the vendors had been located for decades as saying that ICE, quote, just take advantage of this because suddenly the right-wing media and online influencers came down into the area. So basically, it sounds to me like whenever Brooke and Nick want to visit someplace, they go have a vacation, visit the city, and then make a video to destroy it, and then their vacation is a tax write-off. This is all time we were spending there preparing to do our business all over the city's sidewalks, apparently. Literally. In November, Shirley was awarded the, quote, Citizen Journalist of the Year at the Citizen Journalism Gala held where? Anyone want to guess? Anyone out there? Anyone in the house want to guess where they held the Citizen Journalism Gala? You did guess it, probably. Trump's Pervalago estate, and hosted by James O'Keefe. So basically, this is like who's who among American high school students, except for that's actually a great comparison for the Board of Peace as well, by the way, like some sort of weird marketing scam. Secure your place on the Board of Peace and secure your place in the Citizen Journalism Gala as well. The month after the Mar-a-Lago ceremony, it's not even a ceremony, come on, Shirley was collaborating with Minnesota Republicans to put the issue of purported fraud in the state's Somali immigrant community on the national agenda. On December 29th, House Republican leaders held a press conference in the wake of his videos. At that conference, Lisa DeMuth, D-E-M-U-T-H, I don't even know who that is. Is that a member of Congress? I'll have to look that up. Well, Lisa, just checking. Yeah, Minnesota State Representative. Okay. Wow. All right. I guess I could be forgiven for not recognizing that name. All right. But at the press conference, Lisa DeMuth not only backed the veracity of the video, which would be incorrect, of course, telling reporters, by now, everyone has seen the viral video that in under an hour exposed more than $1 million in fraud. She also added, our caucus, the Republican one in the state legislature, has been working to expose fraud for years, including working with Nick Shirley and agency whistleblowers to get the information out to the public and to hold the Walz administration accountable. The Guardian emailed DeMuth to ask for specifics on the collaboration. I mean, you brought it up, right? And whether the apparent inaccuracies unveiled by subsequent reporting were Shirley's alone or Were they the result of information provided by the caucus? Good question. A spokesperson referred to a man who appears prominently in the video, referred to only as David, it's not me, by Shirley, who was later identified by the Minnesota Star Tribune as David Hoch. Is it Hoch or Hoch? H-O-C-H. A Minnesotan whose several paid political campaigns included an incident in which he campaigned, quote, in nothing but shorts and a sandwich board on Minneapolis's, is it Nicollet Mall? I mean, what an accomplishment. I don't know what the hell. So he walks around in shorts and a sandwich board. Okay. National policy. Boom. National policy, everybody. They wrote, some of the information they used, including daycare locations, CCAP numbers, violations, etc., was given to David by caucus staff who found it in the official DHS licensing database and other publicly available sources. So in other words, yes, the Minnesota Republican Legislative Caucus was behind the effort. Next up, double act. Shirley reportedly built his channel with shock and prank videos in the late teens while he was still a high school student. Not his late teens, but the late 20 teens, I guess. But he also was in his late teens at the time. After graduating in 2020, Shirley, a Mormon, took a hiatus during 21 and 22 while he completed a religiously ordained mission. So how do you like that? He went on a religious mission. And then came back and said, I'd really like to hurt immigrants. I went abroad. I don't know whether he went abroad on his mission or not, but it's an interesting thing to do as a Mormon, to go on your mission, probably internationally, and then come back and say, boy, one thing I really learned when I was abroad is how much I hate the rest of the world. It's time for me to get a video camera now that I'm done with my religious mission and lie about people in ways that will hurt them and destroy their lives. Because God. Anyway, after he returned from his mission in 2023, according to NPR, Shirley's content took a more sharply political and partisan character. I guess it worked. Per Columbia Journalism Review reporting, this pivot was encouraged by Brooke. Thanks, Mom. It was Brooke, who was a former journalism student and a content creator herself, who pushed her son to cover the southern border, the topic of several Nick Shirley videos in 2023. So you go on vacation to Arizona, make a couple of videos right off the Airbnb. She has also been closely involved in his work. In his acceptance speech at Mar-a-Lago, according to CJR, he thanked Brooke, quote, for filming many of his videos. Bring your mom. Each has registered companies that appear to be related to their public output. According to Utah company records, so again, the point here, of course, no surprise, they're Mormons, they live in Utah, people live everywhere, but in case you were wondering, I go to Portland, Oregon and film. I go to Seattle, Washington. I go to the southern border. I'm going to Minnesota. I'm going overseas to the UK, all from out of Utah. No problems in Utah to cover. Too boring. And of course, probably any massive financial fraud you might uncover right there in Utah would be likely to endanger fellow church members. So they need to go looking elsewhere. But fabulous scam if you can make it work for you. Anywhere you want to go on vacation, you just pretend you're uncovering fraud and write it all off. And why am I not doing this? I don't know. Anyway, according to Utah company records, Shirley was the organizer of Honey Badger LLC, whose purpose was, quote, online media and related activities, which was registered in April of 2024 and administratively dissolved on September 21st, 2025. Everybody remembers the also oddly viral Honey Badger Don't Care stuff, I guess. That must be where it's stolen from. Brooke Shirley, meanwhile, was the organizer of BT Outlook LLC, whose purpose is social media and related activities, which was incorporated on September 30th, 2024. Both companies were registered at the same residential address in suburban Farmington, Utah. It is not known if BT Outlook LLC is the underlying entity for the pair's news influencer activities, while Nick Shirley promotes his YouTube channel as being, quote, here to entertain and bring the truth to all. on Brooke's TikTok account, which at the time of reporting had more than 290,000 followers. Damn it. Brooke describes herself as boots on the ground citizen journalism, adding, "Follow me for true news." Oh, I need to use that as a tagline. I need to do more work on shamelessly promoting myself, I guess. And, well, we'll have to start doing that right after this break, I suppose. How about a little bit more before we go? Roving reporters is the next section. Just to tease you a little bit on what's yet to come. Brooke's boots frequently tread the same ground as Nick's, because they go on vacation together, I guess. The pair's video output indicates that they travel to the same places that have been the focus of conservative media and social media, and produce often inflammatory content that reinforces conspiracy narratives about locales, individuals, and groups.
Sup, fam? It's your boy Darwin, aka Darwin_Darko, aka the most reasonable man in America, aka KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We were in the middle of reading what? Yes, right, the Guardian's coverage of the weird-ish sort of, I mean, you know, it's not all that weird to necessarily be in the same business, parent and children, but this one just strikes me as a little bit weird because the nature of the work is so weird. But content creators and MAGA influencer, mom and son, Brooke and Nick Shirley. So as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by myself and my self-imposed breaks. I did mean for the end of the sentence to get through. The pair's video output indicates that they travel all over the place, the same places, though, that have been the focus of conservative media and social media before. And as I said, or as they say here in The Guardian, they produce often inflammatory content that reinforces conspiracy narratives about locales, individuals, and groups. What kind? Ones that have been demonized in right-wing discourse. So they don't even really come up with new ideas. Those guys are creating content saying these people are beat-upable. I'm going to go there and beat up on them and see if we can't make our content break through more than theirs. So they don't, it's not content, it's not idea creation. It's just, again, content creation. No different, really, I guess, in that respect from what we do here. Although we do try to add some additional value to things. But we're reading newspaper articles about things that are of interest to our fan base, I guess. But the difference is what we've forgotten to do is make up titillating stuff about it and use it to our partisan advantage to lie about other people and destroy their lives. And I need to get into that, I guess, because that's much more lucrative. Anyway, Nick Shirley's videos are usually longer, more complex, and more intensively edited than his mother's, but the pair often cover the same ground. On October 28th, for example, Nick Shirley published a video on YouTube which purported to offer an account of events on the ground in Portland, Oregon. His video played up stereotypes of the city, which have emerged during the Trump era, focusing on homeless encampments and scuffles outside the city's ICE facility, which has been the focus for protesters and counter-protesters since the summer and attracted a Trump-ordered National Guard deployment, which has since ended after the Supreme Court judged it unconstitutional, but he went to make videos in support of the unconstitutional thing. In a section of the video, Shirley entitled, "Antifa Receives a New Shipment," Shirley showed a U-Haul truck resupplying protesters with barbecue ingredients and inflatable animal costumes. Woo! Hot scoop. Between October 12th and 16th, Brooke Shirley published 5 TikTok videos. Wow, 5 TikToks shot in the city. In one published on October 17th, Shirley features footage of the same costumes, groceries, and charcoal grills highlighted by Nick in his longer YouTube video. Isn't that something? In the video, which features throughout a text insert reading Antifa camp receives gear in Portland, Brooke Shirley intones over footage of the setup outside the ICE facility. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm going to show you what the ICE facility looks like. Adding, right over there, you can get inflatables to put on. There's food to eat. The tents to take a nap in, I guess. Wow, that is some effing journalism. Holy mackerel. Anyway, in another of Brooke Shirley's Portland videos published on October 15th is focused on protesters wearing Tyrannosaurus Rex costumes. Wow. In that video, over footage of the blow-up theropods dancing with other protesters, Shirley asked viewers to, quote, imagine if for 100 days this has been going on in front of your apartment complex, because this has been going on for more than 100 days, 24/7. The same pattern repeats itself in the pair's trips throughout the U.S. and beyond to cover hot-button right-wing issues and events. On September 15th, Nick Shirley posted video taken at the anti-immigrant Unite the Kingdom rally in London, held 2 days earlier, where interviewees included a woman in a Union Jack bikini and a man with severe facial contusions who was later seen confronting police officers. What a pair. And by the way, that's how long it takes them to do this. I went out there September 15th. I posted the video, but the rally was 2 days earlier. So the fantastic editing work took 2 days to get the damn thing up. Aaron Rupar does it in minutes. The video also heavily featured the far-right activist and convicted criminal Stephen Yaxley Lennon, better known as Tommy Robinson for some reason, who was one of the rally's key organizers. Shirley published a separate sit-down interview with Robinson. Around the rally, Brooke Shirley published interviews with attendees who offered praise for Donald Trump and the recently assassinated Charlie Kirk. The previous year, on a separate trip, Brooke Shirley published her own interview with Tommy Robinson. Want to go to London? Sure. Let's go on vacation. Liked it so much I went again. Just interview Tommy Robinson and it's all a write-off. Next up, the Somalians. After I just told you what their scam is, the Somalians are masters at fraud. Even though, I guess, vacationing all over the place and writing it off because you talked to a Nazi is not fraud. It's not, but okay. Following established practice, Brooke Shirley posted versions of the Minnesota story on her TikTok channel. On December 27th, she posted a video captioned, "The Somalians are masters at fraud and the government is dumb enough to allow it to continue to go on." It, for some reason. Why it says it twice, I don't know. It's easy to find the fraud. All you need to do is a little bit of research and visit the businesses. Hashtag Minnesota, hashtag Minneapolis. All you have to do is visit. Then they visited and they found no fraud, but they stood around saying they had, so boom, viral video. A text insert on the video, which shows Brooke Shirley standing outside a purportedly empty ABC Learning daycare center in Minneapolis, reads, "Somalian-run daycares all over Minnesota are closed, yet collecting millions every year from the government." In the video, Brooke Shirley says this daycare right here ran by Somalians, has taken in from the Minnesota government $1.1 million. Because she's very good at English. Shirley adds, "This daycare says it can hold up to 40 children. I went up to the door. The door is locked. And as you can see, the windows are blacked out. I can't hear any children inside this daycare." This is Brooke's thing here. Shirley continues, "It's midday right now. You'd think there'd be children in there playing, being taught, but no one is in there." Further on, she asserts, "The Somalians are robbing the taxpayers in Minnesota blind." Nick Shirley's identical claims about ABC Learning Center have been refuted by multiple outlets. Nobody's even paying attention to Brooke's thing, I guess, including CBS Minnesota, which found time-stamped security footage of children arriving on the day that they visited the facility, with reporters seeing children being cared for when they visited. Like real reporters, I guess, got let in. Brooke Shirley's video has been viewed almost 360,000 times at the time of the reporting. In the past, Brooke Shirley has credited her son for her success on TikTok. On January 18th, 2025, following a brief TikTok shutdown arising from Biden-era legislation aimed at forcing the site's Chinese parent company to divest, Shirley posted a video whose caption explicitly credited her son for her success on the platform. "I am saying goodbye for a moment. Hopefully we will be back." There's no comma or anything in there because she's great at punctuation. "Thank you to my TikTok family and friends," Shirley wrote, adding, "Thank you to my amazing son, Nick Shirley, for making my dreams come true here on TikTok." What a dream it must have been. The accompanying video, soundtracked by Green Day's Good Riddance, Time of Your Life, featured a montage of still images of Shirley interviewing migrants at the southern border and cities around the country, attending Trump rallies and student protests, and standing outside homeless encampments. What great fun they have. Despite persistent concerns about the quality of the information passed on by self-described citizen journalists like Shirley, Pew Research suggests that 1 in 5 Americans regularly get news from social media content creators. Well, make it us, and I think you'll be, relatively speaking, okay. Make it the Shirleys, your brain will rot. So there you have it. I thought that was an interesting look behind the curtain on these two weirdos, and something you should know about the people responsible for creating the Trump administration presence, I guess, the ICE presence in Minnesota, which likewise has created this backlash. So the city is destroying itself thanks to its invasion by ICE and the like. And they say outright that it was Nick Shirley that drove them to do it, even though Nick Shirley didn't find anything at all. Speaking of which, out in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, where we told you the other day that we had found reporting that some 6, I think they said, in total, top lawyers at the U.S. Attorney's Office were leaving in protest. There's more on the situation, and I guess more resignations said to be in the pipeline, if not happening now, according to Mother Jones, where Samantha Michaels is reporting on the situation under the title of Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office is bracing for a new wave of resignations. This, an article from just Saturday. Prosecutors are alarmed by the administration's response to Renee Good's killing. And of course, basically the situation comes down to there. The Border Patrol and ICE goons have showed up in Minnesota. They shot a lady in the face, and they are investigating the face for the wrongdoing here, basically. You shoot somebody, it's your own fault. We need to investigate you and everybody who's involved with you. The FBI, apparently, I did happen to see a snippet just the other day, maybe just yesterday, I should look that one up, about the FBI's investigation concluding, yeah, they should be investigating the shooter in all of this. And then, I guess, main office back under Kash Patel's control saying, no, there's not going to be an investigation. And DOJ, one level up, saying, that's right, there's going to be no investigation. The investigation is going to be of Renee Good and her wife and her family and everybody else. They're the ones who, after all, put their face in the way of the bullets. And we'll be suing them for damages to those bullets, I guess, at some point later on. That's like literally what's happening there. All right. Well, at any rate, as a result, more resignations among federal prosecutors are expected at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota amid ongoing frustrations over the Trump administration's response to that fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE officer in Minneapolis. I have heard there may be more people leaving, people I would consider senior and respected career prosecutors, said Anders Folk, a former acting, yes, U.S. attorney in Minnesota, who left the office in 2021 to work for the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. under former President Biden. Minnesota federal defender Catherine Rowe, in a staff-wide email obtained by the Sahan Journal, also wrote that, quote, more resignations are anticipated at the U.S. Attorney's Office. It's a sign that something is not right there, added Folk, who is still in touch with colleagues in the office and is now running for Hennepin County Attorney. Already this week, at least 5 federal prosecutors in Minnesota announced their resignations, and among them was the office's second-in-command, Joseph Thompson, who was overseeing the welfare fraud investigation involving Somali immigrants that President Trump used as a pretext to send his immigration force to Minneapolis. We were just saying that. The prosecutors did not give a reason for their departures, but their announcements came shortly after the Justice Department ordered the office to investigate Good's wife, rather than focus on the shooter and the shooting. It's a big deal, and this is fairly unprecedented. Lori Levinson, a former federal prosecutor now based in Los Angeles, said of the resignations, you have so many leaving, and frankly, on principle, we are living in unique times where prosecutors are being asked to do things they've never had to do before. That's not what they signed up for. 5 senior prosecutors at the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division in D.C., a unit that investigates police killings, also resigned this week. Since Trump's re-election, the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office has seen a steady stream of departures. Nearly 50 out of 135 staffers have left their positions. That's an awful lot. According to a person with knowledge of the departures, who did not want to be named, and you know why, and who confirmed that more resignations are likely, some of the office's attorneys left last year as Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, you remember them, was working to downsize the federal workforce. Others quit in December after ICE launched its Minneapolis surge. The administration's response to Good's death on January 7th appears to have been the last straw for some of the prosecutors. The 37-year-old mom, who had partly blocked a neighborhood street with her vehicle, was, as you know, fatally shot in the head and chest by ICE officer Jonathan Ross. And despite everybody knowing who he is, and largely knowing who he is because they accidentally spilled the beans in Kristi Noem's DHS apparatus, Noem was on TV in the Sunday shows, again, for no good reason, but she was there. And anytime anybody mentioned Jonathan Ross, she said, oh, don't say his name, you're doxing him, even though she's the one who doxed him. The killing, which has sparked nationwide protests, was captured on video by multiple bystanders and also by Ross, who recorded the encounter on his phone for some strange reason. In his footage, a male voice, which the New York Times has verified was Ross, could be heard calling Good, you know what, of course, an effing, we'll clean it up a little bit, an effing bitch, after he shot her. I mean, I guess something of an iconic moment, but also apparently a moment that's been, apparently it's a replication of previous shootings. This is just something that ICE agents say when they shoot women for some strange reason. The Justice Department has defended Ross, insanely enough, accusing Good of trying to run him over and order the U.S. Attorney's Office to focus on Good's wife, who was on hand protesting the ICE operation. But a frame-by-frame video analysis of the Times, from the Times, clearly shows that Ross shot Good as she was steering the vehicle away from him, and that he was not run over, as Trump and other federal officials claimed, or struck by the vehicle in any substantial way. The administration quickly excluded the Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension from its investigation, making it harder for state authorities to gather evidence. As staffers of the U.S. Attorney's Office watched the video footage, some were crying or otherwise visibly emotional about the death and the Justice Department's response, according to the person with knowledge of the departures. Since what they're calling, I guess, Operation Metro Surge began in the Twin Cities, federal immigration officers have reportedly arrested more than 2,400 people. To deal with the influx of cases, given its reduced staff, the U.S. Attorney's Office is receiving help from military attorneys. You remember that story? Known as Judge Advocates General. Several JAGs are already stationed at the office, and the Pentagon, according to CNN, plans to send about 25 more. As videos spread showing brutal ICE encounters in the Twin Cities, officers dragging a disabled woman out of her car as she tried to drive to a doctor's appointment, carrying away an unconscious man in handcuffs, throwing a flashbang at a car with 6 children, and more. Protesters are calling for accountability and yelling at the masked federal officers to get out of their neighborhoods. But of course, you just saw earlier in the show, heard from a Republican member of Congress who said, no, that's all to distract from the investigation of the daycare centers. Sure. But to file civil rights cases against ICE agents or any other law enforcement, prosecutors at the U.S. Attorney's Office would need approval from the Executive Office for United States Attorneys in D.C. And that, quote, feels impossible, said the person with knowledge of the resignations, when you can't even get an investigation for a woman who was shot point blank in the head. Folk, the former acting, yes, U.S. attorney, told me that he's never seen anything like the recent spate of resignations in Minnesota. It's unusual, he said, and we have that too.
That's unusual!
That's not actually him, but I love that clip. It is unusual, though, for so many career prosecutors, as opposed to political appointees anyway, to leave at the same time. It's deeply concerning to many members of the legal community here, folk told me, and he worries about the consequences for other investigations, including the ones looking into fraud in state welfare programs. You know, they're willing to take it seriously. They got some convictions on them, after all. And the assassinations of former House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, last year. Like, they could be spending time on that. Maybe they should be. At least some of the attorneys who resigned this week had planned to use their accumulated leave to stay on longer and help with the transition, but the Justice Department fired them after they announced their intentions, abruptly blocked their credentials, and had them escorted out of the building. The Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office had fewer than 30 prosecutors prior to the latest departure. That's less than half of what the full head count should be, folks said. Former federal prosecutor Levinson added that it might be difficult for the office to hire new attorneys given the explosive political environment. People of the caliber you used to get at the U.S. Attorney's offices aren't interested in the job. They've had a major brain drain, and I don't know who's going to be left to do the cases, she said. This will have impact for years to come. And maybe that's fine for the guy who thinks he's going to run it all from the Board of Peace. All right. Did we read this one yet? I don't remember. Let me go take a look at whether we opened this one up and read through it or not. Yeah, okay. I think we did. This was it was good. It's important to get on the record. I'm thinking of the BBC article, Europe at a Total Loss. Yeah, you remember that one. Russia gloats over Greenland tensions. Okay. It's difficult to remember it within the same show without being able to archive these things from Instapaper, whether we read them or not. And even if I did archive them, I'd probably forget. All right, let's see. A few other items of interest. Hey, you know what? Here's one. A bit of a wild card. I wasn't counting on seeing this one, but, weird story. And it's in the New York Post, and I'm going to talk about it anyway, which is weird all by itself. IG probe, Inspector General, probe uncovers Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Remer's office booze stash and strip club visit with subordinates. That does sound weird. I hadn't had my eye on the Labor Secretary for a while. Too many other crazy things happening, but I guess we should have taken the hint from appointing Pete Hegseth as the Defense Department Secretary, that I guess now everybody is going to say, well, I don't know, he got famous being a drunk. I guess I should start drinking too. I don't know exactly how it happened. Josh Christensen writes this up for the New York Post. Here's the story as he reveals it. A sprawling internal investigation into Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Remer has uncovered an alcohol stash in her Washington, D.C. office. Not really sure exactly what that means. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these people with, real old school offices, have wet bars in the place like the, Mad Men or something used to have. Is that an alcohol stash if it's out in the open, or are we talking about like a warm bottle of half bottle of vodka in a desk drawer kind of stash? I don't know. And I'm not sure we're going to find out either. But it's there, and it's in the headlines, and it's in the Post for some reason. They usually would kind of bury this sort of story, you would think. Someone's got it in for Lori Chavez de Remer. Anyway, There's an alcohol stash in her office and evidence that she took subordinates to a strip club while on an official departmental trip, according to 5 sources familiar with the probe. And, while that's certainly inappropriate and I would advise against it, I also wanted to add that there's a photo of the strip club, and boy, you could have found a classier strip club to go to. Holy cow, this is like off-ramp strip club in, I don't know. I'm sure it's a lovely place and the people who work there are fantastic, but it doesn't look great. Anyway, the investigation has also confirmed that rumors the secretary pursued an inappropriate relationship, with an underling were discussed internally months ago and dismissed by a judge, an investigator, an impartial reviewer? No, by her chief of staff, who apparently is Ji-hoon Han. I don't think I've ever run into that name before. Who was, by the way, put on leave on Monday, along with his deputy, Rebecca Wright, 3 of the sources affirmed. I don't know why they're put on leave, but they are. And maybe they'll offer more in the rest of the article. The Post first exposed a bombshell complaint that alleged Chavez DeRaymer, 57, had also committed travel fraud. Ooh, not fraud. Look out for that. Oh, well, at least she'll get a pardon. Travel fraud. How? Why? What kind of travel fraud? She apparently had Han and Wright make up official trips. That is kind of weird. Was she looking for fake reimbursements or something like that? That's pretty cheesy. Anyway, another problem she was having was drinking in her office during the workday. And she, of course, because this is what Republicans do, enabled a hostile work environment with her top aides belittling and bullying staffers. The complaint has sparked at least a dozen interviews so far with government officials and staff, an indication of the expansiveness of the probe. The interviews have also uncovered a previously unreported incident involving Chavez DeRaymer allegedly taking subordinates to an Oregon strip club in April of 2025, per 3 of those sources and records reviewed by the Post. And look, I'm all for, office camaraderie and blowing off steam and team building, but strip clubs, it doesn't have to be that. You could go to bingo night. You could go to axe throwing. You could throw axes at immigrants, which you might even be encouraged to do by the administration. Why it has to be a strip club? It doesn't. It doesn't. Why was it? I don't know. They're crazy. I guess they think they can get away with anything, but why not go someplace, nicer? Just generally. And again, if you're like, I don't know, I'm just one of those people that think that strip clubs are a fun place to go to a nicer one. This is real dive. Anyway, the April 18th visit to the club, Angels PDX, outside of Portland, like anybody, I guess, who's familiar with it. I mean, it's one of those squat windowless buildings. I mean, strip clubs are windowless. I mean, just generally speaking, because otherwise people won't pay you to get in. But it's like in a, I don't know, it looks like a pretty seedy looking place. And they're all a little bit seedy. It's a dumpy little building out on the roadside somewhere. Outside of Portland, anyhow. The trip came at the end of the tail end of the visit came at the end of a 5-day trip to meet with the state's Democratic governor, Tina Kotek, a CEO of a truck manufacturing company. That's not, I don't think, who Tina Kotek is. She's the governor. Maybe she also has a trucking company. But I think they're saying that they were also there to meet with the CEO of a truck manufacturing company. Why? Department of Labor. And to tour an Intel chip center and view an ironworker project. That's just, quote, ironworker project, according to official travel schedules, I guess. And also, I mean, there's labor going on at the strip club. They could have been inspecting the place, perhaps. Travel vouchers show the taxpayers forked over $2,890.06 in total for the secretary's Oregon trip. I mean, that's pretty low cost, actually, with costs of $1,324.21 for transportation, $722 for lodging, $655 for meals, and $188.35 for miscellaneous expenses. I mean, it's not a great deal of money, but I guess it was just wrong in general. So it's a little bit weird. Secretary Chavez de Remer firmly denies any allegations of wrongdoing. Her utmost priority remains to advance President Trump's agenda by continuing her hard and successful work for the betterment of the American people, said her attorney, Dr. Nick Oberheiden, in a statement. Dr. Nick is her lawyer. That's fantastic. Hey, Dr. Nick. The Labor Department's Inspector General's office, helmed by former New York GOP Representative Anthony D'Esposito, did you know that? Is seeking all potential evidence, including video footage from the strip club. That ought to be fun. But video footage about at least 5 purported meetups between the then married mother of 2, my goodness, and her alleged paramour at the secretary's D.C. apartment and a Las Vegas hotel. It feels to me like the lead has been buried here in this story. Video. The subordinate in the alleged inappropriate relationship with the secretary, who did not respond to a request for comment, has since been placed on administrative leave, sources said. And by the way, I'll just note for the record that her chief of staff and chief of staff's deputy have been placed on administrative leave by some strange coincidence. The department will not comment on internal or personnel matters, a DOL spokesperson said in a statement on Friday. The secretary remains focused on carrying out the department's mission and supporting American workers. Yeah, sure. The White House directed the Post to a statement from the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, on Thursday, in which, who cares what she said? She denies the whole thing and says everybody's awesome. The allegations against the secretary and her aides were contained in a complaint filed last month with the DOL's Office of Inspector General, which was first reported by the Post on January 9th. They deny the whole damn thing. The IG's office has not confirmed or denied the existence of the investigation. So far, the interviews have been focused on Han and Wright, who are said to have provided cover for the secretary's conduct. Neither responded to a request for comment. Here's a photo of Ji-Hoon Han himself. The decision to put the pair on leave was made in part because they continued to exert improper influence over junior staff even after the investigation began, the Post understands.
From NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, we'll see where this development goes. Lots of more details in here that I will read over and decide whether we need to spend any more time on this horrific development. Time now, though, for hand things over for Justice Putnam to take you on the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy tour of events around the country and around the world.